Welcome everyone on International Women's Day to another Women's Climbing Symposium online talk. Tonight we have Shauna Coxsey here and she is taking questions from everyone in the room. So you can ask her pretty much anything you like. Thank you so much to Adidas 510 for helping us to put all of these talks on. Without their help, we would struggle. So thank you so much. Right, where am I going with this next? It's International Women's Day. So hi everyone, congratulations on being a woman. It's brilliant. And we want to big you all up all the time, and everyone we know who does fantastic things in their lives. It's hashtag choose to challenge, I think, is the theme for International Women's Day. So yeah, we're going to ask Shauna some questions on that as well in a minute. And I think before I ramble on too much, I think we should just pass over to Shauna, and I'm going to ask her some questions first around sort of International Women's Day and who inspires her. So yeah, Shauna, who inspires you? Which women inspire you?
It's a big question to start with. Firstly, hi everybody, and thanks to those of you who've got the video on. It's really nice to see so many faces. It's been so long. I'm not sure if we were supposed to ask Rebecca about hashtags, Emma.
Yeah, I forgot to say, right, it is all about questions. So if you don't want to ask a question, put your question in the chat and either Rebecca or I'll read it out to Shauna. And if you want to ask your question in person, camera on, stick your hand up. And to do that, you go into participants and there's a little button that says raise your hand. And Rebecca, if you don't unmute yourself, Rebecca will unmute you so you can ask your question direct to Shauna. Sorry, forgot that vital piece of information. On how this is all going to work. Please feel free to have your cameras on. We love seeing your faces, but also if you don't want to, that's fine. So yeah, nice to see you all. Sorry, Shauna, and all the hashtags and things, I don't know them. I'm not good with hashtags. So here's Shauna.
Yeah, to answer your question, it's a good place to start, I think, talking about inspiration, because for me it's a really personal question, and I think often people talk about like the people that they look up to for inspiration, and for me it is that to some degree, but way more than that, I'm inspired by the people that I'm surrounded by, the people in my life doing amazing things that are important to them and that are really relevant to them as well. So, at a climbing wall, if I see someone climbing and trying really hard and absolutely crushing, it doesn't matter what level they're at. It's so inspirational to me to see people working hard for their goals and their dreams. So yeah, I'm inspired by all of the amazing people doing really cool things I'm surrounded by.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that is definitely something that's changed with my climbing, like the people around me being the people who are just so inspirational. It's cool. Especially like with social media now, and you get so many ideas, don't you, from like, oh, they're doing that, I'm going to do that. Right then, has anyone got any questions? Have we got any hands up, first of all? Let's see. Come on, be brave. Who's going to be first? Who's going to ask Shauna the first question? I can see, is Heidi in the room? Cindy is in the room. I can see Cindy. Have you got a question, Cindy? No.
We were scared no one would want to ask questions.
Yeah,
so if you don't want to ask them out loud, then feel free to pop them in the chat, and then Emma and Rebecca can read them out. But
okay, I've got some more questions while people get brave. Okay, so we've had lots of different talks happening for this series of WCS while we're online, and some of them have related to sort of the psychology of climbing and all that side of things, and dealing with your inner chimp, and what is psychology a big thing for you? Do you have someone who helps you with that? Are there any particular things that sort of you have to really work on when it comes to bigging yourself up?
Yeah, so I work with a sports psychologist, and I've been working with him for I think about 5 years now. So for a long time I didn't. And I work with him for sports psychology, life psychology, absolutely everything. And it kind of depends what's going on as to how sport specific it is. But we've recently been trying to put together a model for like how my sports psychology works, and it's been such a fascinating process to go through how my brain works on the wall, because for me it feels so subconscious, so to try and articulate that is really difficult, because I feel really calm, I feel really focused, I have that switch that's like, right, it's go time now, and I don't know what all of the components of that are. So then to try and put that onto a piece of paper and go, okay, this is everything that I need to function well in a competition or in a moment when I have to like perform on rock. So yeah, I work closely with a sports psychologist. At the minute I speak to him, I think like twice a week. No, not twice a week, once every 2 weeks. I'd love to speak to him twice a week though. Yeah, and I find it really beneficial. And then kind of away from working with a sports psychologist, I think I do a lot of psychology techniques for climbing, so visualization, writing goals down, and really checking in with how I'm feeling as well, which I think is so important and something that it took me a really long time to learn how to do. But yeah, I think psychology is fascinating and incredibly important for performance.
Cool. Well, if anyone's interested, we've got some talks up on our YouTube channel that you can go and have a look at next when you're finished here. Don't go now. Um, and we're getting some questions. People are getting brave. You're braver than me, because I would be like, can I speak my question? I don't want to write it down. So the first question we've got: hello from Minnesota, USA. This is Jacob. He'd love to know more about which authors or books you find impactful.
Oh, great question, Jacob. Thank you very much. For books with regards to climbing, there's a few books that I have found really fascinating that I've read. One is called The Inner Game of Tennis, which is about coaching. And then there's one called The Confidence Gap. And I'm terrible at remembering names of authors, so I apologize. And they've been the two main ones that have stuck with me. And I also like The Chimp Paradox. Emma mentioned your inner chimp earlier, and I think that that's a really fascinating book as well. So probably those three are the ones that I've read that have stuck with me and I've remembered. But I'm terrible at remembering book names and film names and music and anything. I think it's because I have such a big family, remembering all their names. But yeah, I think those three are the ones that I would recommend reading.
Awesome, thank you. The next question: if you could offer one essential tip to other climbers, what would it be?
Just one? Oh, that's so hard.
That's a really hard one.
I could talk about tips all day. I think so. When I was younger, my dad would always be like, don't forget it's supposed to be fun. And, I'd be like throwing a tantrum because I couldn't do a climb and getting really frustrated. And kind of even now when I'm in that state where I'm like, like agitated or annoyed or upset or whatever, and I'm like, this is supposed to be fun. And it brings me back to that realization that there is a way to keep this fun. And like for me, climbing is now work, but yeah, and work's not always fun, but I think I've kept that like ethos throughout my entire career that it should be fun. So I think figuring out why you love it is really important, and then staying true to that, and everything else can fit in around it.
Cool. This one sort of links in. And what piece of advice would you have that you've been given, which you have carried with you through your climbing or your life?
I guess, yeah, like I was just saying, I think like remembering why you're doing something, and whether it's to have fun or whether it's a goal that you have in mind, like knowing your why. And actually that advice kind of is really relevant to going through life and through career. and changes, because if you're constantly checking in and figuring out what your why is, then you can like reassess and reevaluate and kind of stay on your path and not kind of be pulled in different directions. So yeah, checking in with who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it has been something that I think isn't always easy and hasn't always been easy for me, but it's probably the most important thing for me in my career, to be able to do that and keep doing that, you know, whether it's monthly or weekly, or just making sure you're surrounded by people who'll make sure that you are checking in and that you are staying true to who you are and knowing your values. Yeah, I think that that's incredibly important.
Awesome. Have we got anyone who's got their hand up and who fancies asking a question instead of listening to just me?
Come on, someone ask a question.
No one's brave enough. Come on, girls, you can do this.
Oh, someone's unmuted.
And boys.
Is that
And boys. Come on, everyone.
More.
Oh.
Hi.
Yay! Hi.
Hi, Molly.
Hiya, how are you?
All right, thanks. Thanks for asking a question.
That's all right. I thought I'd try and be brave. I mean, International Women's Day and all that. So.
Thanks.
So my question is, how do you think the lockdown has kind of impacted you with regards to your training for Tokyo?
Yeah, good question. And one I get asked a lot, and I feel like every time it depends what mood I'm in as to how I answer it. But obviously it has had a huge impact in some respects. And then with the postponement of the games, I chose to have 2 surgeries. So that was in July last year now. So that had an impact. And then with the lockdowns coming again, that had an even more impact. But we have been able to access climbing walls and gym facilities and keep training in some capacity. And then I also have like my basement's converted for training, so I'm able to keep training, but I miss training with people and having that vibe and the positivity and the energy, and I'm see so many heads nodding, so I know I'm not alone in that. And you know, there's some days like in the gym today I was like, I don't want to do it, and there's like, but you've got to, it's your job. I'm like, but there's no one here, like no one's gonna know if I don't do it, which obviously isn't the right attitude. But I managed to get a site and have a really good session, and I'm lucky that she's around. But yeah, it's just kind of really made me realize that there's a huge difference between motivation and commitment, and being committed in those sessions is something that I'm having to really focus on and understand that I don't need to be motivated to get every single session done, and I don't need to kind of tap into anything. I just need to get it done sometimes. And I never really had to do that previously, because I was surrounded and purposely surrounded myself with people who are psyched and motivated and passionate. So you kind of just feed off that. So yeah, it's been challenging and a change for me, but yeah, it's not something I want to do again. I want the walls to be back open for sure. I can't wait for them to be full of people. And I think like earlier I was saying, I'm inspired by the people I'm surrounded by. That's so true. And it's been lacking of late because there's not many people around. So yeah, I'm very fortunate to be able to keep training, but it's definitely been challenging. Thanks for your question, and thanks for talking. It's nice to hear people.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've got a couple of hands up now, but I'm just going to go for one more from the chat because it's been posted a while. So do you have any tips for shorter female climbers? Anything that we need to work on in particular? And do you find any moves that you just can't do because of your height, or do you always find a way around them?
Good question. Who's the question from?
Oh, sorry, it just says home.
Oh, thanks, home. So good, yeah, really good question. And I recently did an ape index like measurement, and I have plus 8.5 centimeters ape index. So I was like, oh, I can't really complain
Plus 8.5
about
centimeters ape index.
Yeah, so I had no idea until I measured. I was always like, yeah, I've got pretty long arms. And then we measured my Ned, my fiance, he's got plus 13 centimeters. So I was like, what are we? Like, what's going on there? But yeah, we've got really long arms. Who knew? But there are moves that I cannot reach, especially outside on certain types of rock. I just can't span between the holds, and when it's totally blank in between, I'm like, okay, this climb's not for me. But indoors, often there's a way around and think outside the box. But with regards to like what can you do as a shorter climber, it is think outside the box. And I think there's often multiple sequences to climbs. And I watched some comps back a little while ago, and they're like, well, here's Shauna, she's always got weird beta, like she's always doing it a different way. And I was like, huh, I had no idea. I never knew I did things a different way. Like, why is that? So yeah, I think it's finding your unique style and playing to your strengths and working on your weaknesses, and being able to assess your strengths and weaknesses is incredibly valuable. So, you know, climbing to your absolute max span and then training within that range. There's loads that you can do. Just kind of got to get creative with it. And yeah, like I said, think outside the box.
Right. So Julia had a hand up, but I think it might have gone down. Is that right, Julia? Oh, she's muted. Just unmute yourself, Julia, if that's all right.
There we go. Figured it out.
Yay!
I know. I was just going to ask about the shorter climbing question as well.
Ah, okay.
I was sprung ahead of me. But yeah, I do find it frustrating because what's annoying is it can put you off climbing a little bit sometimes, especially if we are talking about International Women's Day. You do climb with taller males a lot of the time, so it can be a bit of a bummer sometimes.
Sure. No, and I totally agree. And actually, one of the reasons I started the symposium in the first place was because women were coming up to me and saying like, oh, how do you like work around being shorter? Like, and there was loads of questions I was getting asked, but that was one of them. And I was like, I've never thought about being a female or being a short female before. And I was so oblivious. And a lot of the guys I climbed with were taller. And I asked my dad, I was like, Dad, was this a thing when I was younger? Like, how did I keep climbing with the guys? He was like, oh, you decide that you need to like work on jump moves. So you go to sessions and just do jumps the entire time because there was a boulder that all the guys could reach and you couldn't. So you wanted to be able to jump. So we just work on jumps. And I was like, that's really proactive of me. And I had no idea when I was a little kid. And I think I was always thinking like, oh, how can I do that? Not, I'm shorter, like I'm female, like I'm not as strong as you guys. I was like, there'll be a way around. And generally there was, not always, of course, but yeah, I've climbed with like, I used to climb with mainly guys for most of my climbing life, and it's only more recently that I climb with a lot of women. And I think, yeah, it's amazing to climb with both because you get so many things from both people, and all different people that you climb with. So yeah, it's cool. And I would say to the question of like, how can you like work on that, like videoing yourself and like seeing yourself climb and like looking for solutions that way is a really good and like proactive way around that. So you can see yourself on the wall, and sometimes you can see different options, and sometimes you can see, oh, maybe I can reach a bit further, or maybe I could hold this hold and do it differently. But yeah, just trying to get as creative as possible, I think, is the best way.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Cheers, Shauna. We've got another question from Anastasia. Is that how you say it? You want to unmute yourself? Oh, can you unmute them, Rebecca? Anastasia, have you put your hand up by accident? I'll ask one from the chat. I did that in a...
Oh no.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Oh, great. Hi.
First of all, thanks that I'm able to ask a question. So it's a very personal question, I don't know, but woman to woman, in general, birth control are hormones, and they are just kind of like very bad for training. And I wanted to ask you if it's possible to have both, so birth control and do very hard training and be able to do the moves, or is there any other possibility? Because I'm struggling right now with it.
Sure.
A little bit.
Yeah, no, thanks for your question. And no, it's an ask me anything, and you can literally ask me anything. So yeah, no, it's totally cool. So I haven't spoken that much about like what birth control I use or about periods before in the past, and there's been no real reason. People have just never asked me about it until more lately. So I started birth control at quite a young age. I think I was around 16, 17 maybe, and then stopped taking birth control last year. So I did all my training, won all the World Cups I won, all my podiums on birth control. So the answer is yes, it's possible. However, I was quite unaware and quite oblivious as to like what was going on in my body. And the reason I stopped taking it was because I just suddenly kind of went, oh, I don't want to take this anymore for no reason at all. And like, it's the lead up to the Olympics. I was just like, I don't know. I want to know what my body's doing. So I had time to like figure that out and go back on birth control if I needed to, sought professional advice. Spoke to an amazing doctor called Emma Ross, who works with athletes and talks to them about their cycles. So yeah, it was just kind of a fascinating like time for me. Although one thing I would definitely say is if you want to stop taking birth control and know what your body's doing that at the start of a global pandemic when everything's about to go to pot is really bad timing, because you have no idea what's to do with the pandemic and your life being thrown upside down and what's to do with stopping taking birth control. So yeah, still trying to figure that one out. But it's been interesting, and a load of people have said like, do you feel better having come off? Like, did you struggle when you were on birth control? For me, I had a really like positive and absolutely fine experience. I took a pill that you take constantly, so I didn't have breaks on it, and it just took my periods away. And then suddenly one day I was like, that's really weird and doesn't sound very healthy, and maybe I should stop doing that. But yeah, that was in March last year. And apart from totally freaking my other half out, because he was like, why are you doing this? Are you going to go crazy? And I was like, I don't know. Let's find out. It's been really fascinating. But I think almost training on birth control was better for me because it was constant and consistent. But I do think I had like hormonal changes going on in the background, like dips, like being clumsy, being more fatigued at times, and not knowing what that was until more late, where I'm like, oh, there's a pattern to this. I can see that now. That was probably there the whole past 10, 11 years. I don't know if that answers your question. I've just like waffled on there, but yeah, I could talk about it all day.
That's a great answer, Shauna.
You.
Oh yeah, thanks for asking the question as well. Cheers.
I would say it's just important to figure out what's best for you. Speak to medical professionals. Please don't take my advice. I don't know what I'm doing. I can just speak from my own experience, but no, I think it's important to figure out what's best for you. And I think there's a lot of information out there right now, so it's kind of hard to digest. And I've seen a lot of people saying like, oh, birth control is bad for you. And I was like, well, I didn't know that. I was on it for 11 years and worked good for me, but I don't know the science behind it.
Well, next, one of some of the talks we've got coming up in the next few weeks are going to touch on that subject. So we've just put one up on the Women's Climbing Symposium website. We've got Dr. Natalie Brown coming to give a talk. What is it? What's the title, Rebecca?
The Power of Periods.
The Power of, I knew I had a catchy title. Yeah, so get onto the website, sign up for that, and there might be another one as well. I think we're going to do 2. So yeah, come along to the first one, and then I think that's going to sort of give us some ideas about how to fill the second one in terms of content. So yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. I'm not doing very well keeping up with this chat. We've got a lot of questions in the chat now, Shauna. Someone did ask if you do any trad when we were on the psychology question, which I didn't pick up on. So you tell them about your trad history whilst I look at the next question.
It's going to be short because I don't have a trad history.
I've got the next.
In all honesty, I think I've done like 3 trad routes ever. And for those of you who don't know what trad climbing is, it's traditional climbing where you place the gear as you climb, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, it's not that I don't want to, I just don't have that much time. I don't even really climb outdoors at the minute because I just don't have time with all the training. But yeah, I'd love to do more tri climbing. I just need someone to teach me at some point in the future if anyone fancies it.
Oh, I'll definitely take you out, and I'm sure there's loads of people on this call who'd be up for you as their climbing partner. So I'm just going to go on to the next one. So someone's curious about working out your legs. So they see a lot of female climbers doing leg workouts and not many male climbers doing this. Why do you think that is? And that's from Joe.
Thanks for the question, Joe. It's a good question as well, because I don't know the answer to it, and I can speak for myself in that, especially because I'm speed climbing at the minute as part of the Olympics. I'm having to do a lot of leg work and explosive leg work, and I think it really benefits my bouldering as well. But most of my leg work came from having knee injuries and needing to strengthen my legs. So when I first started seeing the physio I work with now at Harris and Ross, I walked in and he was like, yeah, of course you've got knee problems because you have no glutes and like barely any quads. Like, what's going on? Like, what do you do? I was like, oh, I climb. And he was like, it makes sense. So I got way stronger glutes and legs and just got really into doing booty workouts basically because, yeah, why not? So I do a load of leg work, and I find I feel so much stronger for it. And yeah, I don't know, I just keep having to buy bigger size jeans though, which isn't a bad thing, but yeah, it's a lot of time on the leg press has definitely given me some much bigger quads that I'm quite proud of. In fact, I am proud of them. There's been a lot of effort to get them, so yeah, it's was mainly for rehab, and then kind of became like prehab, and now it's just part of my routine. And my knees feel so much worse if I'm not doing it. I don't know, maybe male climbers all have sore knees and they should do leg workouts. I don't know, or maybe they are doing leg workouts, they're just not telling us about it. But
Yeah,
I have no idea. I can't answer that question, I'm sorry. I'll ask some male climbers and then maybe let you know, although I don't know how I'd let you know.
nice one, thank you. So I've got another one here for you. So how do you overcome, this is from Charles, how do you overcome those climbs when you just can't crack a move?
So in competition, my time runs out and I never get to try them again, so there's not really any choice. You've got to get over it. But in the wall, so if I'm climbing with people, if I'm climbing outdoors, I generally look to other people for kind of guidance or ideas, and I try to look for different solutions, so try different beta, and get creative. And like, I'm the sort of person that's like, I can't do this. Wonder if I can do it with my feet above my head. I don't know. Let's try something ridiculous. And sometimes it actually works. But I think because I've been climbing for so long, it doesn't take me much time to decipher whether this move is not possible for me right now. This move, I need to be stronger or more flexible or fitter to be able to do this. And whether or not it's possible in that time, or if it's just impossible for me. And I guess that comes from so much time climbing. You need to make decisions and assessments really quickly. So yeah, just, I don't know what the answer to that question is. That, again, I'm just waffling,
Cool.
but I hope that answered something.
That's great, thank you. We've got a couple of questions that are linked here. So Rosio wants to know how many coaches you have, but also someone else has asked a question about they'd be interested to know how many women in your environment work as trainers, or whether there are still more men. So it's sort of linked to your coaches as well.
Yeah,
and that was Saskia, sorry.
Thank you for the questions. And yeah, it's interesting because my coaching team is unique, I think, in some respects, because I have Leah, who is my head coach, and she's like the glue that holds my entire team together. And then I have like my coaching side of the team, and then my management side of the team, and one of my managers, Jenny's on the call, so hi to Jenny. I think Matt's here too, actually, but he's not got his camera on, so yeah,
Shy.
so I have my management side, and then like they deal with all sponsorship and commercial work and that sort of stuff. And then my coaching side, where Leah's the boss, and no one gets in the way of her basically, which is great. So she makes it all work. And then I have a few different coaches who write different parts of the program, and I think all of them are men, actually, thinking about it now. And that's not kind of by design in any way. It's just from people we know or people we work with, and that being quite organic in most respects. And then our head of sport at EIS is female, Lorraine. So yeah, there are women within my team, but there are men as well. And I think there is a disparity still. I think there are more men working in climbing in general. So you see it in route setting, especially, and coaching too. And I think that will change because the number of women coming into climbing is increasing. So that will have an impact on all areas, I think, and it's just kind of taking time for that to be seen and to become the reality. But I think for sure it is changing.
Cool. I think these two are linked as well, Shauna, but correct me if I'm wrong. This one's from Andy, and he's from Colorado, and he was asking how you maintain your motivation to train while in quarantine. But also Ellie, who's from Homefirth, has asked, where is the best place you've been wild swimming? And I think the two might be a little bit connected.
I mean, Colorado is definitely up there on the wild swimming, but that's a hard question to answer.
Yeah. I was thinking more about, maintaining your motivation to train.
Oh, I thought you meant the Colorado.
No, not the Colorado Homefirth thing. No, like I was thinking you have started sort of chucking yourself in cold water, and yeah. I think maybe that's linked to helping keep you motivated and all that.
It's interesting that you say that, because people ask me why I go cold swimming all the time, and I'm like, I don't know, I just enjoy it and I find it challenging. But I do think it is linked to motivation as well. And I think motivation is something that's really personal, and how you come to be motivated is like challenging to figure out. And I'm a goals person. I love having goals in the distance, like one big thing to work towards, lots of little things along the way. And I think as well as that, having like space in my head to train is really important. So whether it's writing stuff down to get it out of my head, like doing the little jobs that need to be done so that I'm not thinking about them constantly, just kind of clearing that space. And I think that there are things that I do, like cold water swimming, that contribute towards that, and writing lists. And my sister Cindy's on the call today, and she's definitely taught me how to write lists. She's a keen list maker. So is
that a list in the background on Cindy's screen? Framed.
Yes, and having the things I use to stay motivated are setting goals, choosing people to make me accountable. So whether that's sharing those goals with people, or asking people to come and train with me, whether that's on a Zoom call, doing a fingerboard session, or like at the wall when we're all allowed to again. So just getting more people involved, I think, is really important. And then checking in with yourself, like how you're feeling, what's going on, and like coming back to that why of like why you're doing it. But within that, accepting that it's okay to not be always motivated is actually one of the most important keys, I think, towards staying motivated in the long run as well, because it's impossible to be always motivated, for me anyway. And if anyone here is constantly motivated, then like we need to know how you do it. Because it's normal and absolutely fine to not be, and it's normal to be, apparently. I just don't know anyone who is motivated constantly. That'd be impressive and tiring. Definitely.
And where's the best place you've been wild swimming?
Oh, I don't know if I can answer that, because I love kind of swimming locally, and when we're on the road as well, like we try and find places we're allowed to go swim. And I think one of the best moments was we were in Austria, and it was like totally chaotic of like what was going on. There was just so much going on in like my world, and it started snowing, and Leah was like, let's go get in the lake. And I was like, what? She's like, let's go get in the lake. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, get your dressing gown on. And we like stormed through this really nice hotel wearing our dressing gowns and fluffy boots and hats. and our bikinis underneath and went outside the hotel and got in the lake in the snow. It was absolutely gorgeous and beautiful, and I can't remember the location. It was in Austria in the mountains, but I'll try and figure that out.
Awesome. Those are the best days, when it's unplanned and you still have
Yeah.
a great time.
We got a lot of funny looks walking through the hotel in dressing gowns, so
so I'm just looking on the chat. There's a question here going back to motivation. I'm trying to read and listen to you at the same time. I'm not the best at doing this. My brain's not great at this. But we have got another motivation question. So I'm going to ask it. And if you've already said it, sorry, everyone. How often do you have those days when you think you don't want to do it and you don't want to train? And then how do you motivate yourself on those days? And I think you've mentioned about Leah and how important she is to keeping you motivated, and the other people around you. But is there anything else that, sorry if I'm asking you a question you've already answered?
So how often is difficult to answer, and I think it's not necessarily those days, it's like moments, and I think sometimes it's important for me to recognize when it's like, oh, I'm not motivated right now, how can I get motivated, and recognize, okay, this is just one of those days, because often you can turn them around. And I think whether it's doing acro with Leah and getting laughing and being silly, or whether it's totally throwing the session that we were supposed to do in the bin and doing something totally different, or having a rest day when it was unplanned, there's a lot of strategies I think that Leah puts into place that I don't even realize, and then that I put into place probably without realizing again, to manage those days. And I'm trying to figure out whether they're related to my cycle in any way, but I don't know that yet. So yeah, to manage them, I think that there are many things you can do, and you've got to kind of figure out what they are for you. But for me, it is just to get laughing, have fun, try and like mess around a little bit pre-session, and try and get that love and that motivation back through like play almost. And I think that's important for me, is to be having fun and enjoying it. So we try and focus on that. But that's all of that stems from understanding what my values are and what I'm doing, and then my people around me knowing that, so they can like tap into that when they need to. They can kind of give me a nudge in the right direction, or kind of pick me up when things aren't going the right way. So yeah, knowing that and checking in, and then sharing that, and also telling people when you're not motivated, being like, I'm not motivated, I feel like this today. And if you don't, it took me a while, and my other half told me a lot of times he can't read my brain, like he can't read my mind, he doesn't know what's going on. So I'd be like, oh, I don't want to do this, I'm not motivated. And he'd be like, oh, okay, what do you want to do instead? Like, let's have a conversation about it. And then eventually I'd usually turn around and go, fine, I'll just do it anyway.
And then have
see
a good time.
People laughing at that, so I wonder if that's a familiar conversation. But yeah, I think sharing how you're feeling is incredibly important for like good relationships, whether that's like personal or coach wise, or even more broad than that.
Cool. We've got loads of questions on here, Shauna. You're going to be here till about midnight, I think.
Rest day tomorrow.
The next one's going to be interesting, because I think you have a lot of people inputting into this now. But it's any advice on writing a training plan whilst in lockdown?
That's hard. And I would say start with your goals. So know what it is that you want to train for, and then look at what you have available. So make those goals relevant to the space that you're in. You can have that like goal in the distance sat there that is relevant to being able to access all facilities, but then having little goals that you can achieve at home. And actually, my sisters, who a few of them are on the chat today, are my biggest inspiration for that, because they have been setting all of these goals, that whether it's walking a certain amount of miles in a month, whether it's cycling a certain amount of miles in a week, or doing a certain number of classes, fitness classes or whatever it is, and they are just smashing it. And I'm like, okay, like I'm like so inspired by this. It's really cool. I don't even know if I've told you guys that. Yeah, it's amazingly inspiring to be setting those goals and just absolutely crushing it. And yeah, I think having a goal to work towards that is possible and achievable in your space and within your control is essential to be able to stay motivated, for me anyway. And then your training program can be tailored around that. But with regards to writing the details of a training plan with like peaking at the right time and all of that sort of stuff, I have no idea. That's why I have people to do it for me.
I think if you want some help with that as well, there's a few things on the Women's Climbing Symposium YouTube at the moment. Rebecca, are the Catherine ones up there yet? Or yeah. So Catherine Schumacher has done 3 talks for us that ask you tons and tons of questions about your climbing, and then it'll sort of give you a score, and you're more easily able to see where your weaknesses are and where your strengths are. And you might want to work your strengths, you might want to work your weaknesses, but it'll give you that information to be able to go away and sort of think about that in more detail. So get over to the YouTube channel after this and have a look at those. They were really good, actually. There's 3 of them, so that's a good few evenings taken up, isn't it? And one person said, it's Yanya, I didn't realise you started the symposium. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
Yes, of course. So the symposium was created, I think nearly 11 years ago. And it was me chatting to a friend of mine, Jed, about all these questions I was getting. So I started running a women's coaching class at the Climbing Hangar in Liverpool when I used to work there. And I was getting asked questions like, oh, how do you climb on your period? Are you embarrassed by having big shoulders? Do you like feel uncomfortable being stronger than your boyfriend? And to most of these things, I was like, what? Do I feel uncomfortable being stronger than my boyfriend? And I was like, no, I think it's really cool, actually. And it made me realize that I had been really oblivious and ignorant to some of the barriers that were very present for women in climbing. And these conversations just kept coming every week. There'd be different questions around like climbing as a woman and barriers that these ladies and these women were facing that I just never even thought of. So I was like, oh, what can we do about this? And Jen and I were chatting and we were like, oh, why don't we create a space to have those conversations, to bring people in who can help, who can encourage, who can kind of connect everyone together and start talking about it. And originally the symposium was an event for women to come together to overcome barriers within climbing and put talks on, whether it was about nutrition, training, all of these different things, just to give access to them. And then over the years, it's morphed and changed and developed and become a huge celebration of the sport. And our mission is to connect, develop and inspire women in climbing. And at the first event, we put 60 tickets out there and we were like, are we going to get 60 women to come to an event? And there was a lot of press around it, like a lot of negativity. And we were kind of quite cautious and quite concerned as to whether it'd be a thing. And I was like, it feels important to try. And those tickets sold out super fast. It went really well. And then at our biggest event, we've had nearly 600 women now. And every year we see familiar faces. Every year people come back. And it's been amazing to be part of such an incredible event that really does connect, develop and inspire. And on the feedback form every year, we say, do you want a women's only event next year? And it's always yes. So we keep putting it on. And yeah, you guys keep turning up. So thanks a lot for that. And it's a lot of work, and Emma and Rebecca joined the team, and I would be entirely lost without them. Like the event just would not happen. But it's incredible, and it's so inspiring for me to be at that event and to meet so many amazing women who do all these incredible things and who are so passionate. and have this opportunity to come together and celebrate the sport as women. I think it's pretty magical. But unfortunately, we didn't get to do it as a whole event this year, and the team have done such an amazing job to put loads of these events on. So yeah, huge shout out to Emma and Rebecca for all the work that they've put in on making all these events happen, because definitely wouldn't have been the same without something, that's for sure.
Thank you. I've got a hand up. I've got two hands up. I took my eye off the ball with that one for a while, so sorry if you've had your hand up for a while. Naomi Barton, have you got a question, or has it been answered because I was so slow?
Hi, yeah. Sorry, I'm just petting my cat. Yeah, I was wondering, with the Olympics coming up and your very active social media presence, I was wondering if you were feeling more pressure than normal coming towards the competition, because I've noticed that there are quite a lot of comments on there about people's expectations of your performance and you know, and how they think it's going to go and stuff. And yeah, I was just wondering how you manage that, and just some of the general problems that can come from being female and on social media. There can be some quite distasteful comments at times.
Yeah, I don't know which part of the question you want me to answer first. I think they're quite different questions, but yeah, social media can be an incredible place, but also a not so nice place at times, and that's for sure. If anyone wants to read through my direct messages to see that, that's very evident. But with regards to the Olympics coming up, it's so surreal that climbing is part of the games in my head. I just didn't think it was going to be part of an Olympic Games, not in my career anyway. And then to be qualified for it is like a whole new like level of surreal, because it just doesn't seem like something that could have ever happened. And with regards to having a social media presence and a lot of eyes on me and a lot of pressure, I think when I started climbing and kind of started as a professional athlete, it was at the time where social media was kind of growing, and my audience on social media started growing with that as well. So I've had kind of an easy-ish journey into having a bigger audience as I've got more and more successful. So in some respects it worked quite well, because the better I did, the more people started to follow me and the more comments I got. And there's been times where I've had to really learn to deal with that and learn who I want to be on social media, what I use it for. And trying to be honest on social media can be really hard, and it's something that I'm really passionate about, but it's difficult. And then knowing like the boundaries of how to work that is hard as well. My other half doesn't like social media and like gets like almost doesn't like that world, but then I love it for the side of like connecting with people and being able to inspire people and share what I do with people. I think it's so valuable. So I'm really passionate about doing that. But yeah, it does add pressure, and it does add an audience that wouldn't be there otherwise. But I think dealing with pressure is something I've had to learn throughout being an athlete. And it always comes back to, why am I doing it and what are my goals? And if I can't answer that, then we're not in a good place. But that's something that I've definitely had to learn to like block it out and focus on me for a minute and be like, right, this is why I'm here. I'm not here to prove this to anyone. And I think pressure is a really interesting topic, and it's something that I've had to learn a lot about through my career. But in all honesty, going into the games, like pressure wise, like the biggest pressure is coming from myself, and that's because I want to give a performance that I'm proud of, and that's almost irrelevant to everybody else because nobody knows what that is. But yeah, it's an interesting one, especially because I haven't competed for nearly 2 years. Like, that's such a long time, and I've never had this long to prepare for a competition. It'll be my second ever combined event at the Olympics, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, it seems so, there's so many elements to it and it's really exciting. But at the same time, I'm like, well, all I can do is go and climb. Like nothing else matters in that moment. And I've spent so long learning that in different events, different comps. And the pressure's got to me at times and I've not performed well. And then of late, of like the last few seasons I've done on the comp circuit, I've just been like, okay, like I'm so content in this space now. And it's probably one of my biggest strengths against other people competing, is that I'm actually really comfortable in a competition environment and I don't feel the need to perform for anyone but myself ever.
That's really brilliant to hear, and I think something for younger climbers to sort of aspire to. The next question sort of linked to that pressure. So how does it feel to be a bit of an icon for women having been an icon for women from such a young age? So I think it links to that, all that you were just saying about, you know, the pressure and things. So maybe having done this from such a young age, it's helped you to work through all that.
Yeah, sure. And for a really long time, I refused to acknowledge that I was inspirational or an icon, and it made me really uncomfortable. And I don't know if that's just because I'm British and we don't like to celebrate success and talk about things, but yeah, I was like, no, I'm not, like I'm just a normal person. And then I started getting like fan mail and little kids coming up to me, and I was like, oh, this to me, this is a big deal now, because all of these media interviews that I was doing, it made me realize that I could promote climbing in a really good, healthy way. I could promote all of these amazing things about our sport, like this passion that I feel for climbing, I can share that with people. And it was a very conscious decision for me to learn how to speak in front of a camera, because I was really bad at it. Learn how to, my sister's nodding, video evidence of me being terrible at giving interviews. And you know, like when I was a teenager, the idea of sitting here and talking to all you guys or doing that live on a stage, no way, that just wouldn't have even, and I wouldn't have even entertained the idea. But when I realized that I could inspire people to lead fitter, more healthy lifestyles and find something that they're passionate about, it was a no-brainer to me. It was like, this is beyond an opportunity. This feels like something that I have to do because it's important. And yeah, it wasn't easy, but I managed to kind of figure out how to do that in the right way. And that's why I'm so passionate about being as honest as possible on social media. There's so much fake stuff on there, and I'm like, no, I fall off all the time. Like, this is what I did today. I fell off every single time I pulled onto the wall. Here's a video of it. I can't ever really be bothered to wear makeup. Like, I am happy to talk about periods. Like, it's who I am. And I think that there's values instilled in me by my family to be honest, to be open, to be approachable. And then I've had to learn how to do all of that, but communicate it to the world in some way, which is terrifying at times, knowing that what I say can have an impact on someone. But if one person turns around to me and goes, you've inspired me, like, thank you, I'm like, oh, it's all worth it, you know. And like, one little kid writes to me going like, can I ask you some questions? Like, you're my biggest inspiration. Like, I try as hard as I can to take the time to sit down. I recorded a little video yesterday for this kid for his school project. I was like, this is the most adorable thing ever, of course. So yeah, just trying to keep connected with people, especially now. I've totally forgotten what the question was. So.
Don't worry, we'll move on to the next one. Thanks for that one, Susanna, though. That was really good. This one's from Perry, and he's talking about your surgeries that you mentioned earlier, and what are your tips on returning to training after injury or surgery?
That's a great question. It's something that I've done quite a few times now. I would say that it's really important to listen to your doctors, to spend time doing your rehab and doing it meticulously whether it's writing a list of all the things you need to do that day and ticking them off, or getting other people involved, but making sure you spend time doing that rehab and not pushing it too hard is super important. I would also say that understanding it's not a straight line to recovery. You are going to go backwards at times, and it's kind of like a zigzaggy line to recovery. You know, you go forwards, you go backwards, you go forwards, you go backwards, and accepting that. But again, and I always come back to goal setting, I think it's so important to have a goal to work towards, and seeing that you're making progress towards that helps you stay motivated and stay on that path.
Awesome. Thank you. So next one, is there anything you have had to give up because of climbing that you are sad about?
Good question. And I've been asked, like, what sacrifice do I think I've made before? And I don't know, I used to chat to my dad quite a lot about that, because it was something I was asked a lot in my teenage years, by interviewers, like, do I feel like I've sacrificed my youth? And I was like, no. But I've never felt like I've given anything up or sacrificed anything. And I think that again comes from my family being so incredibly supportive and moving like birthday parties so I could be at them when I was away competing, and they'd wait until I got back. And I mean, they definitely don't do that anymore, so I must have got bored of that, but there's too many birthdays. But yeah, just understanding that I'm making conscious choices, it makes me not feel like I'm sacrificing anything, and also I feel like I still have a lot of time to do stuff, but yeah, maybe I'm like missing the point with a lot of things, and I don't know what I don't have in a way, but I'm so proud of what I've accomplished and content with the life I've had. It doesn't feel like there's any point at which I've sacrificed anything. And I think that really is to do with my family being so incredibly supportive and understanding from such a young age that these are the choices I was making. And sometimes there were choices and there were consequences, but we'd always have conversations around that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like there's anything I've missed out on.
Yeah, that's nice. I think climbing gives you lots of opportunity. I mean, me and my husband have talked about this, how climbing can be limiting sometimes, because, you know, we'd love to go and just like live in a field and have a farm and, like, you know, do all that sort of thing. And then we're like, yeah, but we just let it go to wreck and ruin because we'd be out climbing all the time. So, you know, there's definitely there's things you do give up, but it's all for the good of climbing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this question is from Chloe. I work a lot coaching kids and young adults in their climbing goals. One topic we rarely seem to talk about, which still seems to have stigma around it, is food. In the climbing community, there is often such a lot of pressure to be slim that I would like to ask about your views on what makes a good diet, and what advice would you give teenage girls in terms of what they eat while they train. And just to let everyone know, we have done a nutrition talk, so that's on our YouTube channel as well, and it's with Rebecca Dent. Shauna, do you still work with Rebecca?
Yeah. So I was going to say, actually, I would definitely recommend checking out Rebecca's talk that she did with WCS and more of her work as well. I've worked with Rebecca as a nutritionist since I was 17, I think. And when I was 17, when I was 18, I broke my leg and I was significantly lighter than I am now. I think, in fact, I was over 10 kilos lighter than I am now, which is a lot considering I don't weigh that much in the grand scheme of things. It's a significant percentage. So I now weigh 58, 59 kilos, and I'm quite happy to say that out loud, which is heavier than a lot of the competitors that I compete against. And I think it is a topic that needs to be talked about more, and it needs to be something that is okay to be talked about, and there needs to be more support from multiple avenues. But I think it's hard as a coach to find the information, and working with nutritionists I think is incredibly important. And one thing that Rebecca and I have done is she's given me a lot of tools and a lot of information, and then I've gone away and made decisions, and now I have the understanding to not rely upon a meal plan or kind of constantly ask her like, how much protein is in this? And I understand that I need to have like protein for recovery. I need to have carbohydrates. I've tried eating less carbohydrates. It does not work for me. And I've always kind of been of the opinion that I'd rather eat more and train harder because I really love food. And I love baking, and I was never going to bake and not eat it. So yeah, I think I've always been quite fascinated by food and what I require in my body to perform. And that's been something that I've always worked with Rebecca on over the last decade. So yeah, I think it's an important topic and one we need to discuss more in climbing, and that more needs to be done from kind of, yeah, like I said, many different avenues to give that support. And I think that more conversations are happening now, which is really good. But
yeah, Emma's oh, go on.
There you go.
I thought you were going to pause then. Emma was asking about the film that's recently been released, Light, and what your thoughts on this were.
Yeah, so I'm kind of still processing that, and I've not spoken like on social about it very much, and it's something that I think is quite hard hitting as a female athlete in the competition scene, especially, and something that I've seen firsthand. And like I said, when I was younger, the girls I was looking up to were tiny, and I wanted to be good at climbing, and I'm so fortunate to have started working with Rebecca at that time, because it's really shaped me into who I am, and I'm so proud to be strong. And I have struggled with body image like so many people have throughout my career, and it's taken me a really long time to be able to be like, no, like I can stand in front of the mirror and be like, like I'm really proud to have biceps, to have thighs, to have a bum. Like I've worked really hard for that. Yeah, and it's kind of layered in complexity of body image and diet, and there's so much in there, and it's so personal, and I think it's an important documentary because those conversations need to start happening, and people need to feel okay to talk about how their relationship with food is and be able to seek advice. So yeah, I think it was an important documentary to start those conversations, and it's sad that it's necessary, but it's good that things are working towards being different.
That is fabulous. I really enjoyed that film. I think it's really good conversation starter, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of, how are we doing for time? I've got a couple of quick fire questions.
I was just going to say, I've just popped in with some quick fire questions. So
yeah, you helped me on the same wavelength.
Are you ready,
like we've
Shauna?
done this before.
It's the speed round, Shauna. Okay, you've been training.
I've been writing them down. We should have communicated this.
I'm not very good at
communicate this. I sent you a message.
Sorry.
Oh, did you? I didn't see that.
Okay, Shauna, are you ready?
Ready.
Top skincare tip.
Rhino skin. That was like a one-word answer. So I use Rhino skin a lot because I have really dry skin. I'm one of those annoying climbers that everyone goes, why doesn't your skin sweat very much? But we have dry skin problems. So my hands like fire off the wall quite a lot. So I use Rhino skin spit, and then I sand down my calluses a lot and try and make sure that I'm taking the time to do skin maintenance, which sounds like such a weird thing to do for your hands, but it's so important. So yeah, I use Rhino skin spit to climb with, and then I spend time doing maintenance. Usually after a shower, I like sand them all down and then have to wash my hands again. But yeah, I spend time looking after them.
Favorite bouldering crag?
Oh, crag. Outdoor climbing. I've not done that for a while. Oh, that's a hard one. I don't know. Do I have to choose just one?
Yeah.
One of your favorites.
I feel like I want to say the cave, but then like everyone that knows what the cave is would hate me. I'm kidding. It's not.
No, it has. I think that's a totally brilliant choice.
Thanks. My other half would be so disappointed. No, I couldn't choose a favorite crag, and yeah, just anywhere that's sunny, not too cold, and yeah, good conditions.
Well, some of us who live in slightly more urban environments are just absolutely loving a canal bridge right now. So it's and anything is great coming from near you. How does Arthur cope when you're away competing?
Yeah, so one of the reasons I wanted to get a dog was so when I left for like long periods, my other half wasn't on his own, and he was really against getting a dog, and now they absolutely adore each other, and yeah, they're like best buddies. So I think they both cope pretty well when I'm away because they have each other. But he does get excited when I come home, but he gets equally as excited if I walk to the corner shop and back as if I go away for 10 days. So I don't think he cares that much. He's just like, oh, you're home, yay.
What shoes are you going to be wearing in the Olympics?
I'm going to be wearing the Naiad for boulder and lead. Oh wait, no, boulder and speed. And then I think I'm going to wear the high angle pro for lead, but I've not quite decided yet. I'm torn between the Naiad and the high angle for lead.
Awesome. I think that is it. So we're just going to wrap up here, but as we said in the chat earlier, if you can stay on for 2 seconds after we've wrapped up and are happy to raise a hand in solidarity for International Women's Day, that would be awesome.
There's one more. Did you ask speed, love it or hate it?
Oh, that's not a quick fire question. That's complex.
Is it?
Yeah, because I don't hate it, and I feel like everyone expects me to, but speed is so addictive, and the speed climbing, I'm talking about, just so everybody's clear. Hope no one's screaming that. Speed climbing is so addictive.
Definitely going to be edited.
Oh, I'm so sorry to my management that are on the call. Anyway, yeah, speed climbing, it's really addictive, and seeing your time go down and making like all these increments is so pleasing. And yeah, I've been climbing for 24 years, so I don't know why I looked up then. Nothing was telling me.
You got some notes on the ceiling.
Yeah, just looking, I don't know. So it's been such a long time that I've been climbing for. So then to do something new and something challenging, but that's still climbing, has been incredibly refreshing. I mean, I won't speed climb ever again, probably after the Olympics, but yeah, it's been amazing fun for the last 5 years, I think it is. I'm looking up again, there's nothing there.
It's all that speed you're on and giving those adrenaline rushes.
Why am I the only one that's
No, it's just your camera. It's just your camera.
Ah, right.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everybody.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed it tonight. A bit different. And thanks so much to Shauna for bearing all. And yeah, coming across, I think it was really, really insightful. So thanks, Shauna. Awesome job.
No, thanks everyone for being here. And yeah, it's nice to see so many people, and hopefully get to see you all at Climbing Walls soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, good night.
Happy International Women's Day.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.